Good morning and welcome to our Sunday celebration. As always, I am so grateful for you being here. My name is Reverend Richard Pacheco, and we're continuing our talk on the quest. And today's topic is the Bible. Now, for me, this was a revelation coming to Unity because I had grown up in Catholicism, learned a lot of things about the Bible based on their traditions, actually grew to hate the Bible because of how it was used against people, and then finally came to Unity and learned a new way to look at it. So stay tuned for the lesson on that. As always, if you haven't done so, go ahead and share this. I've gone to a no nonsense, straightforward lesson. I mean, a lot of times for you who are new or watching this for the first time, we get so wrapped up in the music, in the backgrounds, and everything else that we forget that the importance is the lesson. And I found myself spending more time talking to my daughter about the music for the week and recording it and what's going wrong. And by the time I get to my lesson, the lesson gets rushed and all that. And the importance here is the lesson because that's where we take our knowledge and begin the work. So make sure that if you have a pen and paper, if you haven't gotten the book, if you have a pen and paper, take notes. If you hear something you'd like to hear. Again, the lessons are a high level, usually about 20 minutes of what the chapter was about. But if you have the book, you get a chance to really read through it and get everything you need from it. Also, Adventures in the Quest is the second book, which is the workbook, which a lot of times corresponds with the lesson as well. Last week, you were challenged to see God in people as you went through your days, especially people who you may have challenges with. So I hope you did that work and really got into it. So as always, I like to mention, if you wish to donate to help us, you can always do that through our PayPal link on the website, which is weesc.org, or on our YouTube channel. There's a link to donate there in the About Us page, as well as at the top header. Again, everything's still under construction as I move forward with what's going on with the ministry, with my own life, and everything else that I'm trying to get together as I continue to do the work. I've had some great milestones in my life. Again, I do promise a Wisdom Wednesday coming soon. But again, that is something that'll come as I'm able to do so, as other things are taking priority in my life right now. Again, grateful for you being here, and promoting outside of donating is to support my daughter and my wife's businesses. My wife's business, of course, is Nairobi Naturals, where she has oil formulations, lotions, all natural products, expert on crystals and oils and things like that. So definitely support her at nairobinaturals.com. And of course, my daughter has taken on baking with custom cookies and things like that. So you want to give her a look at her website. Again, it's queencreationsonline.com. With that being said, this Sunday, if you have nothing else to do, well, not this Sunday, excuse me, next Sunday, February 26th, both Nairobi Naturals and Queen Creations will be representing at the Crafts Fair at the Greater Nanticoke Area High School, and that is from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So come out, support all the vendors. But again, special shout out to both my wife and my daughter. They will both be there. They will both be sharing their baked goods as well as their oils. And again, speak to my wife if you need something special or whatever, as again, her knowledge is vast and all that on that. It's good that I can concentrate on Reiki. And if I need something from the oil department, I can always ask her for, advice or whatever. And same thing with my daughter. I've been a fan of the Food Network forever, but yet I can sit there for hours watching her decorate cookies and things like that. So proud of both of them, proud of all my kids. And as I said last week, I really can't wait to see how the other ones blossom into their own businesses and where they want to go with their business or their choice of profession as they grow up. So with that, support them. Again, Greater Nanticoke Area High School. That'll be on February 26th, Sunday, from 10 a.m. to 3 p.m. So with that, let's go ahead and enter into prayer. Let's just close our eyes and breathe in, bringing ourselves into this present moment, this time, this place, where we release everything else but being here, being now. We are grateful for this moment as we are divinely called to be here, either live or later on in the week, watching the lesson, getting a lesson and doing the work, because that's how we grow. That's how we build ourselves, and move forward. We continue to be grateful for the opportunities, all the knowledge that we seek, the fact that we're still here to do the work and where we can do work in others. And we are so grateful. And so it is, and so we let it be. Amen. With that being said, let's take a look at our daily word for the week. And our daily word today is aspire. And I aspire to help create a world that works for all. And that's our affirmation. Once again, is I aspire to help create a world that works for all. I hold a vision of an equitable world, a global community that supports and encourages all people to live fully and reach their unique potential. I feel a kinship with those who hold a similar vision and work to realize it. My past experiences and present perspective show me what is mine to do and how I can contribute to realizing my vision. I trust I'll be guided and inspired to find avenues of service where the things I do best, most enjoy doing will be most helpful. I bless people I may never meet, and I offer my time, talents, and efforts to further my vision on a new way of living. With clarity of purpose, I take my place among a growing network of caring visionary souls. And from Ephesians chapter 4, verses 11 and 12, the gifts he gave were to equip the saints for the world of ministry, for building up the body of Christ. So once again, even in Unity, we talk about that I may be an ordained minister, but we're all ministers in some way. So with that being said, let's go ahead and just close our eyes one more time as we center into this moment. And let's just breathe so that we can be centered in the lesson that's about to be revealed. So again, let's take a breath in for 6, 3, 4, 5, and 6. Let's hold for 3, 2, 1, and release for 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold for 1, 2, 3. In for 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Hold 3, 2, 1. Breathe out. 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. Hold 1, 2, 3. Let's just breathe in deeply and release. Let's just take about a few moments of breathing in deeply and out. And as we breathe in, let's just say here. And as we breathe out, let's just say now. Again, all silently to yourself. We'll do about 10 breaths. Take one more cleansing breath. Release. Let's open our eyes and just be grateful that we are focused on the moment in time. So as I said, our lesson today is the Bible. So that's the chapter in the book, The Quest, A Journey for Spiritual Rediscovery. And as I always tell you, for most of us who have been in Unity a while, what we're hearing right now is really just a reintroduction to the basics. And if you're new, then yes, you're hearing this for the first time, and it may, wow you a little bit, but, just take your time with it. And it all goes back to the 5 principles. So today we're talking about the Bible, as I said, and just a little snippet from the chapter. The Bible is your story. It is filled with lessons for today's world. Learn how to discover its exciting message for you. And the title really says A New Look at an Old Book. And as I shared earlier, That's pretty much what happened to me. So let's share first our biblical verse, which is from Luke 24, verse 45, and is that he opened their minds to understand the scriptures. So once again, we know the Bible is probably the most sold book out there. In fact, when I did a talk on the Bible, I think it was a time when we were doing the quest at Unity of NEPA, I put it out there as a question. I said, what book has sold more copies than Harry Potter and stuff like that? Because it has. The Bible has been sold in so many different languages, so many different versions. If you ever want to know how many versions are out there, you can actually go to BibleGateway.com, or I'm not sure if it's .com or .org, but go to Bible Gateway, drop down the versions, and you'll see that list will scroll and scroll and scroll, and then never mind the languages that it's in. So one of the things for me, as I said, I grew up Catholic, and I was baptized. I did my Holy Communion, my Holy Penance, which is pretty much confession. I did confirmation. Basically, you could say Holy Matrimony, and I wasn't planning on doing holy orders at all. I'm a Unity minister, not a Catholic priest, and then of course the anointing of the sick, or of course that point where we release ourselves back. But I've done pretty much 5 out of the 7 sacraments as a Catholic. And as a child, we're looking at the Bible. And I think for me, one of the biggest challenges was I was always an inquisitive child. And I wanted to know why we hated people of color, why we hated people of different sexual orientations, different things. And all I kept being told, especially in Catholic, was we were separated from, you can fill in the blanks, because, and usually it was a biblical verse or that God wanted it that way. And I just didn't understand it, and then of course we can go back to the chapter on God where we talked about, the different beliefs in God, including, God, a man in the sky. For me, God was Zeus sitting on a throne, pretty much just dishing out punishments, and, having to dodge that. And, we've heard many people say that prayer, now I lay me down to sleep, I pray the Lord my soul to keep. For if I die before I wake, I pray the Lord my soul to take. It was kind of like a lottery. Am I going to die tonight? So there was a lot of things that I brought with me in childhood that still sometimes embedded theology. But the Bible was definitely one of those, because as I left Catholicism, and I think it was 14 when I had to leave Fordham Prep, which just happened to be a Jesuit high school. And I remember the last thing they put in my head, which was anything in the Old Testament was considered allegory or just stories. Which automatically, and as a teenager, you're thinking, well, if everything in the Old Testament is allegory, if everything in the Old Testament is nothing more than stories, such as a nursery rhyme teaching a lesson, then why would I believe that the New Testament was true? So again, that put on a pursuit to go into Buddhism, to go into the Kabbalah, to learn more about the mystical side of the Old Testament, and things like that. But I also grew a hatred toward a book because of how people were using it. And that's what I had to finally come to realize, that it was literally just a book. And how our human side was using it was nothing to blame on the book, but to blame on the people who were using it in the interpretations. One of the things that I love that the author says here, says reading the Bible is like dining at a sumptuous buffet. No matter the time of day or the mood in it, if you're hungry, you can always find something that appeals to you. So here's a perfect example of where the Bible began to change in my eyes. So my wife, my daughter, they both, dabble in tarot cards. Okay. I myself have dabbled in oracle cards. And if you speak to someone sometimes in a more traditional Christianity, they'll automatically say, oh no, those cards are this, that, and the other. But what truly is the difference between me saying I'm having a bad day, I don't know what to do, open the Bible randomly, there's a verse, it works for me. And we'll talk about looking at verses metaphysically later. But, what is the true difference than me pulling an oracle card that, as my daughter likes to say, called me out? with the card because my consciousness, my energy was looking for that. So isn't it sometimes it's the same as the Bible. I've always said that if my consciousness or my energy isn't right, and I'm not truly looking for, how do I say, I'm not looking for answers, but more of a validation of what I'm feeling or whatever, I will find it. But to truly work that practice, we have to come from a place of looking for an answer and being open to receive it. Because if we're coming from a place of ego, a place of consciousness, we will get what we want. Doesn't mean we got what we need. But to discriminate between one practice and another is where I used to draw the line, because it made me feel like, why are we discriminating about these places? Because if we take a moment, we take a beat, we breathe in, we look at what each group of people and their beliefs are doing, we see we're all pretty much speaking the same language, just different titles, different whatever. And that's where the Bible comes in. So we spend so much time trying to figure out who wrote the Bible, when it was written. Is it the word of God or human beings or both? Should we take Bible literally, or as the best-selling book in history, virtually everyone has read it and has an opinion on it? Some of them argue for the erracy, the inaccuracy of the Bible, stating that it is God's word and therefore can be taken literally in every detail in some people. And some people see it as a harmless collection of interesting and historical moral anecdotes. In the light of all speculations around it, does it have any value to us? Yes, I do believe so. So in proving the Bible, how does that really do anything for any of us? I mean, we can sit there, just in ministerial school alone, let alone the 13 years of Catholic school and Jesuit high school, I've taken so many Bible classes. And of course, every Bible class is taken from the perspective of the teacher. I took 8 semesters, if I'm correct, through ministerial school alone. And I read Bible as history. I've had to read each one and interpret it. And we'll talk about, again, metaphysics will be coming up soon. But each one of these things led us to that. So everybody's trying to prove that it's right. There's so many documentaries on TV of how creation is this and creation is that. We have proof. We don't have proof. We have proof that it didn't. Who really cares if we really look at the Bible for what it is? Jim Rohn was a great business mentor who passed away a number of years ago. In fact, when my wife and I went out to the Success Foundation, he had called in and they had it over the loudspeaker for the group that was there. And it was the last time that he was heard in person. From what I understand, he had passed away short months after that. But he always said, take the religiosity out of the Bible and look at the lessons you learn. And that was one thing that he constantly talked about in all his business practices. We know that in the first part of Genesis says, let there be light. And when we look at the Bible, when we look at the Old Testaments, and we looking at things metaphysically from a consciousness level, we know that it's actually helping us to become the best us we can be. In many cases, when we look at the Bible, we look at the old consciousness. We look at us being better humans, better, better people, better men through that time. And then moving into the New Testament, we kind of look at the new consciousness as Jesus comes about, he finds himself, he goes out. We know that there's the missing years in there from, if I'm correct, 17 to 33, that no one knows what he did during that time. There are so many speculation as to where he was studying. He may have made it to India. He may have made it to wherever. And he brought this study back to create a new consciousness, which is what we talk about being the Christ consciousness. One of the things I love is Reverend Ike, again, going back to how the Bible supposedly puts witchcraft and sorcery and everybody to shame. But I love Reverend Ike, who says when we talk about the gospel, we know that when they translate, it pretty much means good news. He says, well, remember that God's spell is literally that. It's a God spell or a good spell. And we have teachings on ourselves about how to bring consciousness about. When we read the Bible from more metaphysical part of that. So speaking about metaphysics is that we learn that a lot of the characters and things in the Bible represent different things. So, a woman in scriptures usually symbolizes your feelings, your emotions, or your intuitive nature. The realization of Christ in you, born in your feeling nature, it can be intellectualized or analyzed. I mean, it can't be intellectualized or analyzed. It can only be brought forth from an intuitive level. So again, whenever you hear me say, people are like, well, the Christ consciousness, and I said, people are like, well, how do you describe that to an atheist? It's your intuitive self. It's that intuitive inside of you when you can separate the ego, the anger, all of that the frustrations and all of that, and find that peace in you, that intuitive peace that says, this is what you need to do, even when we're scared to do it, even when we want to kind of run to something else. It is that nature within ourselves that tells us to move forward. And it is that feeling nature. So I'm just going to do that. Whereas the female character the Bible usually represents our feeling nature, male characters in the Bible usually represent our intellectual nature. They symbolize the part of each of us which looks only to the facts and logics for answers. The scribes and Pharisees are the perfect biblical example of this exclusive intellectual learning. So they pretty much only come from facts without any feeling behind it. Their entire emphasis was on the letter of the law, and Jesus constantly chastised them for their intellectual bullying. It becomes obvious when reading the Bible that a balance of our male and female qualities, a judicial blend of intellectual and feeling natures, serve us best. So we talk about that there are a lot of lessons in the book when we look at things metaphysically. Again, if you're more interested, and probably some of the homework I'll give you today is to look at a verse and look at it metaphysically. So to do that, the easiest way to do that is either to have on hand the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary and the Revealing Word by Charles Fillmore, or, like most of us now, we go to truthunity.net, which is run by Reverend Mark Hicks, and he has both the Revealing Word and the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, and you could actually find the verse you want to translate and go through that. So I'm going to give you some very high-level metaphysical translations based on 2 stories in the book, and then I'll give you one that's always been my favorite for doing. So the lesson's going to be kind of short today because I want you to spend the week doing the work. But the first one is he talks about is the the lesson of Lot. So we know it's Sodom and Gomorrah. They're told to leave, and they're told not to look back. And we know that his wife Lot looks back, turns into a pillar of salt. Well, what could we get from that? Now we can do a long metaphysical translation of it, but I think one of the easiest ways to look at that is we know that a female character in the Bible is your feeling nature, your emotional nature. And when Lot turns back, they were told not to look back, but to keep going forward. She looks to her past. So how many times in our own emotions we look at the past and we hold on to the past? Now, we could use it to blame others. We could use it to blame ourselves. And that's a lot of our times, is that when we hold on to things of the past and we can't let go, we can't move forward, because all we want to do is remember that past, hold on to that past. And that's a very high and fast level of what the story of Lot would be. She couldn't let go of the town. She didn't want to let go of the town. She turned around. She's holding the vision of that town, what she's missing, what is her lack, what is that, and she dissolves her true self. How many times have we done that in our life? So here's a lesson in the Bible that we looked at one way and go, wait a minute, it's right. What if I just look forward? I let go of the past. I do the forgiveness work. I do the moving work. I improve myself so that I may not repeat the past. Or if I'm blaming someone, realize, what part did I take in that? Well, the part of Lot was that she turned to look back and held that vision. Whereas the part that I took was the part that, and these are the things that help us realize if we move forward. So again, Lot, female, meaning the emotional, the feeling nature within ourselves, holding on to our past, not letting go, to move forward, knowing things that can get better, so forth and so on. The second story that the author uses, of course, is the story of the poor widow. Now, that's the story of Elijah. That's the story of Elijah, where, how do I say, where the widow is told that she has to sell things, or, again, her child might be taken, so forth and so on. And Elijah tells her to go in and get the oil, and then they get enough oil that they sell it, and she has more than enough money and enough oil for, herself, and so forth and so on. And so, like I said, you can actually go in and read the story. Sorry, I'm really paraphrasing here, but in the end, it's one of the stories that's always stuck with me because of the fact that it reminds me that when I think I'm in lack, I'm not truly looking at the blessings around me. I'm looking at past hurts. I'm looking at future anxiety, rather than taking this moment to say, hey, what can I do right now? How can I write down what I need to do? And how can I find a way to actually do it? One of the things I'm working on is my own financial education, and doing that because I know that I've let it go by the wayside on my own self. And I'm learning new ways of doing things, learning how to stop looking at lack, look at the blessings that are still in my life, and not just monetarily, in every aspect of my life, and know that, no, I can only take it a day at a time and let it unfold. And it's the same thing here. If you look at the widow, she looked around and said, I have nothing. She had nothing. But yet, after Elijah confirmed to her to go ahead and go in and look at what she had and take the oil and find out and put it all into one jar, realize that the oil kept flowing. So how many times have you done that in your own life, where it took something inside of you to say, keep looking, look at the blessings you have. Trust me, trust in yourself, trust in whatever that we're going to do, and move on to doing the right thing. And see that when you take that chance, no matter how scary it is, no matter how much lack you think you're missing or whatever else, what do you call it? No matter what lack or whatever she has, that it can come to be when she stops looking at lack and starts looking at the blessings. So again, very high metaphysical. We can find out what Elijah means, what the widow means, again, female versus logical thinking. There's a whole bunch of things here, but that's like the short end of it. Now, like I said, for me, one of the great interpretations that I started with was the two greatest commandments: love the Lord with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your strength, and love thy neighbor as yourself. So of course, I've done the talk about the third commandment. But when we translate that, we look at Lord as being the I am, that Christ consciousness, that individuality past the ego and all that outer world stuff that's bombarding you. And you're letting all of that go to know the true self within you, which is centered in gratitude and love and faith and all of that. When we look at that, we are commanding ourselves to love that part of us and to truly focus on that part of us. And we say, Lord thy God. What if we change God to actually good? So when we look at ourselves and we love that good within ourselves, then we love that good within ourselves. When we love ourselves within ourselves, then we can love our neighbors as ourselves. Now, of course, from a more traditional standpoint, God, of course, would be that separation of we love God, then we love our neighbors, and then the third commandment was we had to love ourselves. But that's a short, again, metaphysics lesson on that. And we talk about, again, what can we do? What are the lessons we learn in the Bible? The author also taps into the story of Jesus sleeping on the boat. And when he comes out, the boat's a storm and he calls for peace, and then things go on. Same thing. I am one of those people that are constantly in my head. I start creating stories about things that I have no business on. It's just because I want to think about it. And because I'm doing that, I'm no longer that, where now when things, or I start to think things that are not existent or not whatever, I begin by breathing in and saying, peace be still, knowing that I'm telling my mind, calm the storms. They're really not even really storms, and be present in this moment. And that helps me. It may help you, may not. There are hundreds of exercises out there how to stay out of your head and stay present in the moment. I've had to do a lot of them to find the ones that work for me. And even then, I falter. We all do. So let's take a last word. When we look at we look at a Bible, we know that the lessons can help us improve our lives. And when we look at it beyond the literal word and look at it from a metaphysical point of view and really translate the Bible into a more of a metaphysical type of, how do I say it, more of a metaphysical look at it. We look beyond the physical, we can find stories that help us grow. And if we may remember, or we kind of look at the Old Testament bringing us through manhood or to adulthood, and then of course the New Testament bringing us into a consciousness, a spiritual consciousness, and grow the spiritual consciousness. And when people say that Revelations is actually the end of the world, in reality it's just the end of that outer world consciousness that we have, and bring us back into that spiritual consciousness. So as always, we give thanks for knowing this, learning this. And if you have adventures in the quest, we know they quote people. It says most people are bothered by those passages of scriptures that they do not understand, but the passages that bother me are those that I do understand. And that's truth and lesson. Again, my first Wisdom Wednesday, when I finally get to do it, will be knowing what we don't know, we don't know. And it's one of the biggest lessons I've learned. Now, mind you, I've heard this years ago, but I've recently learned so much about myself, about the things that I've needed to work on and be doing. And at least for me, the work I'm doing for me has helped me become a better person. And I hope that in turn will help me become a better minister, and most importantly to my family and to everything else, because of the fact that we do the work. And that's what's important with any of our lessons, whether you hear it from me or any other Unity person. It's not enough to us to sit there, and that's principle number 5, to listen to the lesson, but to actually go out and act upon them. So do that work. So with that being said, why not, for homework this week, visit excuse me, wow, I just forgot the website. So go visit truthunity.net. Again, if you can donate to them, do so. He does some great work. You'll actually go on that website. They actually have the new Fillmore Bible, which is how a lot of the work done around metaphysical translations. But as I said, you can find so much on there, including the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary and Revealing Word. Find your favorite biblical passage, or just randomly open the Bible to something, choose a passage, and do a little bit of translating. What do the names mean? What do the places names mean? Male versus female. It can get even deeper than that. Sometimes, we talk about the lower animals versus the birds in the sky, higher thinking, lower thinking. So it can get really complicated, but right now, all I want you to do is just play with it a little bit. We know that male is more intellect and logical thinking. Female is more that emotional, that instinctive thinking, and then just the story around it. And like I said, if you go into the Revealing Word and or the Metaphysical Bible Dictionary, places, any kind of names can be translated. And then in turn, once you have it together, just write everything, all the different notes you have together to make it one cohesive passage. And I guarantee you, you'll find something that you can take away from that. So as always, I am grateful. I hope you got something from today's lesson. Just let me check. Next week, we will be speaking about oneness. So with that, as always, I'm truly grateful for you being here. Again, if you wish to donate, you can visit our website at weesc.org. Again, not really updated, but at least the link is there. Or if you happen to be on our YouTube channel, feel free to help. Otherwise, you can definitely support us by supporting my wife's business and supporting my daughter's business at the crafts fair next week at 10 a.m., excuse me, to 3 p.m. at the Greater Nanticoke Area High School. And as always, visit the websites, NairobiNaturals.com and QueenCreationsOnline.com, and help out that way as well. As always, I love you. Nothing you can do about it. Again, no frills, just lessons. And that's what I want you to do, is to work on yourself through these lessons. So I'm truly grateful. Thank God for you guys who do visit and do listen to the lessons. And I will see everyone next Sunday. Namaste.